Hi everyone, I'm Kaius with a K, and every now and then people around me describe me as being so random. Well, I certainly can admit that some of the jokes I make are worthy of an XD lol, and on occasion I've been known to bake people a cookie before proclaiming that I eated it. However, no matter how many purple dinosaurs I feed my kawaii mustache cheeseburgers to, how many epic potatoes I squash, or how many grr quotes I recite, unfortunately I will only ever be the second most random thing I know, because this button exists. Yeah, this is a video about the random button, and look at that video length! Wow, Kaius has gone off the fucking deep end! Like you may have expected me to make a video essay about Marvel Tokon or M1K ending content, or even one about my thoughts on people shit-talking Ingrid's inclusion in Street Fighter 6 for debuting in a bad game, while simultaneously celebrating the addition of characters from Street Fighter 3 New Generation, but nope. That's just how random I am. I am literally opting for the randomest option available to me instead. As of late, I haven't been able to stop thinking about this question mark motherfucker and what their deal is. Where did they come from? What's their real identity? What do they taste like? Actually, here's an important question. What was the first fighting game to feature random select? Well, it's hard to say for sure. Because for all I know, some random obscure PC fighting game from the late 80s that secretly innovated the entire genre could have it, but I'm pretty sure the answer is Mortal Kombat 2. If you're hovered over your player number's default slot, Liu Kang for player 1 and Reptile for player 2, hold up and press start. Your cursor will move on its own for about 4 to 6 steps. It even says random select above your character, so it's possible that the term was straight up coined by MK2. The paths are predetermined per character, so if you have good pattern recognition or the versus battles community just happens to think that you can see faster than other people, then you can determine who your character is before you even land on them. Obviously this means the random select isn't technically random, but you're going to learn very fast that random select in general is very not random select. It's also worth noting that most of these games, MK games included, usually base random select off of the frame you hit the button on. I know this because I tested it extensively, like a freak. I also found out by testing it on ROM hacks that the paths are obviously pre-programmed into the game. When doing the random select codes in Mortal Kombat Revelation, I noticed that alongside having to move P2 all the way to Shang Tsung, it never went out of the dimensions of the original UMK3 character select screen, so there's like 2/3 of the roster that you can't random select into in this ROM hack. Neat that this code is left completely intact, I guess? Mortal Kombat also had the hidden slot feature in MK4, and I may as well talk about this one because I'm never ever going to get to bring this up in a video ever again ever. But it could be used to hide your cursor on the character select screen. In the console version, this could also be used alongside a button code to play as Goro or Noob Saibot, but you're not going to get footage of me doing that because I'm not doing an entire arcade run with fucking Shinnok. Group selection also exists, which also has a hidden character called Meat behind it, requiring you to complete matches in group mode with all 15 characters or something. But you're not going to get footage of me doing that because I'm not doing an entire group mode run with fucking shit. Surprisingly, not a lot of 90s fighting games had actually even implemented random select. You couldn't use random select in mainstay games like Super Turbo, Marvel vs. Capcom, or even Tekken 3. You know, when I said it out loud, it almost doesn't feel right to say. Like there's some technicality or something notable I'm forgetting. Oh well! You know what series' random select I like? KOF. Since KOF is a 3-on-3 game rather than a standard 1-on-1, it leaves the door open for them to do some extremely interesting things with their random function. KOF's random, sometimes called roulette, doesn't just select one character at random, it fills all of your remaining team slots with random characters. Not only that, but the random character is actually true random, so to speak, in that between matches it re-rolls your randomized characters. I find this especially fun to use in the Nest Saga games, since the 4th striker slot being randomized leads to really interesting playthroughs, doubly so in KOF 2001 where you can have 1 point character and 3 striker characters. Randomizing these three characters almost makes the experience have a randomizer ROM hack archipelago-y feel to it. I was actually surprised to find out that this roulette style randomization is actually still present in modern KOF games, with KOF 15 not only having it in its story mode, but even having an achievement for completing story mode with this modifier in play. I did a run of my own and I got Geese on my first match, and then again in my second match, but this time he'd taken his shirt off. Whoa, did I just unlock his romance route? Also, for some reason I went up against a team of random unteamed characters twice in my run, and both of them had fucking Mei Ten-kun in them. Bro entered the tournament twice, I guess? And then there's Darkstalkers. Darkstalkers has two hidden quote-unquote characters in its random select feature. I say characters, but they're more like play modifiers. The first is Shadow, who appeared in Vampire Savior. Shadow can be selected by hovering random and pressing start 5 times, and it takes the form of the previous character you fought, with only the first one being truly randomized. Well, that's actually only half true. If you highlight your desired character and press start on them 3 times, then enter the code, you'll actually guarantee that you play the first game as that specific character. The second character appears in Vampire Savior 2 and Vampire Hunter 2, called Marionette. And yeah, there was a pair of Vampire Savior sequels, and they're bad. Anyway, the selection method is a lot more complex than Shadow, so listen up. I'll do my best to describe it simply for your plebeian brain. Okay, so when you go to the character select screen, press start on random select 5 times, and then, okay, bear with me here, you press it another 2 times. Wow. Rather than take the place of the previous character you fought, Marionette takes the current one. Both characters don't have unique win quotes or character interactions, but their victory screens are related to their gimmick, with Shadow taking the form of the character you just fought, and Marionette showing a silhouette of the upcoming character. Marionette pretty much just changes the intro per fight, but Shadow has a unique outro at the end of each match as well, where it moves from one character to the other. It's creepy. A lot about these two characters is weirdly off-putting in its presentation, which I suppose makes sense because it's a horror-inspired fighting game series. Moreover, when you complete the game with either of these modifiers in play, the credits are replaced with this ominous music and have sepia-toned portraits of the main cast pinging in one after the other. What the hell does this shit even mean? Fuck if I know. Go write a creepypasta about it. Darkstalkers isn't the only franchise to have this kind of feature hidden in it, as Asura Buster has the hidden character Nanami who does the exact same thing as Marionette, copying her opponent at the start of each match. She even copies the otherwise completely unplayable mid-boss Vabel, who has one of the most insane jump-in buttons I think I've ever seen. To play as Nanami, you need to press start on Sitara, then Leon, then Alice, then Chen Mao, then Dinsuke, and finally Rokurota. After which, the lower random select slot becomes Nanami's slot. I hadn't played Asura Buster before I worked on this video, so I had to learn these guys' names and faces real fast so that I could get this to work. It's an okay game. The Last Blade 2 also has one of these. In the standard game, Akari's 63214C has her use a paper talisman to transform her into her opponent. This clone copies the opponent's character and power type, but reverts on hit and can't use any meter mechanics. But what if we were to take this one move and base an entire character off of it? Well, then you have Hagure Hitogata, the hidden pseudo-random select character. By the way, the code to play this character is fucking horrendously annoying, because you can follow all the steps near perfectly and still mess up because the timing seems to be super strict. Highlight Akari and then press C 8 times, then press B 9 times, then wait exactly 1 second, then press C another time, and you'll hear a sound bite, then press A or D. Hitogata is an interesting take on this kind of character, because while you copy the character you're facing as well as their power type, you actually keep the standard character stats of Akari, and if you copy a character in EX mode while you're running power or speed, you'll maintain the stats tied to the mode you picked. Meaning you won't suffer the huge defense penalty that comes with EX mode, while still being able to deal chip damage and Fandango to your heart's content. However, if you pick Hagure and go up against Akari, it will ignore the opponent's choice and just have you play Akari with the power type you selected. A character who mimics the movesets of other characters. What does that remind me of? Oh! Street Fighter V! Speaking of random select gimmick characters in Capcom fighting games, a sentence that made more sense before I had written the Asura Buster and Last Blade parts in this video. I'm going to keep this outtake in the video actually. Let's talk about this one. Look, I know it's difficult, but I really need you guys to sit and listen to me about Street Fighter V for a second. Street Fighter V's 5th and final season introduced 5 characters and a special bonus character, 11. I was really disappointed when I found out that 11 wasn't a character with the ability to point and scream at foes until they exploded into viscera, and actually turned out to be a second random select slot that morphs into a random character at the loading screen. Stranger things have happened, I suppose. So yeah, 11 is a paid random select button, but there's actually a few things separating this ugly blue fuck from that gorgeous button in the middle there. For one, 11 can be used online. Due to the way SF5's online works, you can't actually set your main character to random in this game. However, since 11 is technically a character, you can pick them. More interestingly, 11 straight up functions differently from the random button. See, when you pick a character, even if it's random, before the match starts, you're required to pick 2 other modifiers for your character, their V-trigger and V-skill. This is not the case with 11. Since the loading screen hasn't actually picked 11's form yet, their V-skill and V-trigger are actually also randomized. This is Street Fighter V's only true random select button, and it forces the random character to be a cyan blob monster who proudly displays to the world that you spent $30 to play random select. Not me though, I bought this shit during the summer sale. I could have bought Outer Wilds with that money, man. Luckily, Capcom didn't make the same mistake twice as in Street Fighter 6. Random is available online by default, and queuing this character actually has its own visuals in the life bar and, much like 11, a completely separate rank from the regular characters. Because of that, I actually went ahead and did my placement matches on random and did a little claiming. And the recording of that is edited down into this month's bonus feature. Fair warning, it went terribly. You should go subscribe to the Patreon. Do it now! Come to think of it, there's actually one really particular random character who is considered their own character that I feel like I really should have mentioned by now. Grand Blue Fantasy Versus appended its random select in a patch with an additional quote-unquote playable character in Lunalu, and this change reappears in Rising. The interesting thing about Lunalu in Rising is how she functions as a customizable random select function. Not only can you change whether or not your random select rotates between matches, but you could also toggle on or off individual characters from the selection entirely. So if you want to just play as Vasaraga or Zeta with a pint-sized Fujo in the background, you can do that. I know I bring up Vasaraga and Zeta a lot whenever I talk about Grand Blue in my videos, and I need you guys to know that there's a very, very good excuse for it. Anyway, Lunalu stands in a really special place in this video because she might be one of the only instances of random select getting nerfed in a game. As of a patch in 2024, you can't actually use the character's customization in ranked or casual queue anymore. It's just full random every single rematch. This was presumably a change to counteract smurfing because people were using Lunalu and setting her to just randomize the same one character over and over. And since Lunalu is considered a separate character, you got hit with 2 skill ratings for one character. It was admittedly a little short-sighted on Arxis' part, but what can you do? Now, could you imagine if there was a random select feature like this, but instead of it rotating the character each match, it rotates you into a different character each round? Wouldn't that be crazy? Too bad such a thing never existed. And never will. Ever. Okay, what next? Oh, Guys, it's come to my attention that I've run out of topics to justify dodging this with and can no longer continue this bit. We need to talk about Mokujin. The Mimic character is random select taken to its logical extreme. Coined by Tekken 3's hidden character Mokujin, the Mimic character doesn't have their own moveset, instead randomly rotating between other playable characters' movesets in each round. Mokujin debuted in Tekken 3 as a pretty blatant homage to Shaolin Wooden Men, one of many 70s martial arts flicks starring Jackie Chan. It's an ancient practice dummy that only awakens if there's some big, immense force of evil. Which, to be fair, happens pretty often in the Tekken universe, but you're not here for the Tekken lore dump. Mokujin uses the fighting style Mokujin Ken, which basically means it has no fighting style of its own, opting instead for mimicry. As I said earlier, Mokujin picks a random fighting style in the roster to mimic, and this changes every single round. Not just between matches, the fighting style changes almost on the fly. Tekken Tag Tournament was especially bad for this because instead of rotating fighting styles each round, Mokujin changes its style every single time it's tagged in. Which basically means it's like totally impossible to do any real tag combos. Made even worse so by the fact that most of the combos you would know for a character like Michelle or Armor King wouldn't actually work because Mokujin's combos are limited to their own proportions, with only a few exceptions made for characters who fight with props like Yoshimitsu. And see, the issue with talking about mimic characters like Mokujin is just that. Mimic characters are kind of in a spectrum. And in my opinion, it's stretched to the point where sometimes it's not really random select anymore. It's like a Venn diagram. Random selects one circle, mimic characters are the other, and there's just a small little morsel of characters who fit into both. Tekken Tag Tournament also had Unknown, who randomly changed styles in the middle of the round while only mimicking the smaller characters, and starts every round copying Jun Kazama. And then there's also Kombat, who does something similar on a match per match basis. When you bring in mimic characters, where does the random select line stop? People would say Shang Tsung, Honoka, Kirby, and the entire cast of Boys 3D are probably considered mimic characters by some people, but they're not random in the slightest. That's not to mention characters like the aforementioned Akari and 12 who have similar moves, or even characters like Dural, Metal Sonic, Chameleon, Emerald, and oh, where does Double fall into this? It's a slippery slope. So let's get back to being somewhat contemporary. Bandai Namco's other fighting series, Soul Calibur, takes the concept of Mokujin and runs with it. It runs fucking far with it. You have Edgemaster and Inferno in the original Soul Calibur, and these two copy other movesets while also having their own special moves. Inferno returned in Soul Calibur 2 but is joined by Charade, and then there's Necrode, who doesn't really count because he has a static moveset that copies specific moves from specific characters. Soul Calibur 3 enters Okadan, who has the head of an owl, I guess. None of that matters though, because Soul Calibur 4 got rid of literally all of these characters. Soul Calibur 5 went completely ass up with this though, because they reintroduced mimic characters with not just one or two, but 3 of them across the game's 6 unlockable characters. And you may be thinking, oh, that's just lazy, and it's not entirely samey, but it is very, very fucking weird. So obviously you have the return of Edgemaster, who is pretty much the same. Then you have Kilik, and this is where things get weird. Look, I know that Kilik was literally a student of the Edgemaster, but I don't think him adapting the full style is ever explained outside of just the fact that he would be a clone of Shiba otherwise. But what he did instead was make him like Edgemaster, except only the male styles. So adapting the full style, that was a fib, okay? Between us. Not to mention Elysium, who uses all the female styles, because apparently we needed a fucking gender trinary of mimic characters in this game. Oh, but that's not all, because Elysium also has another key difference. She has her own super. Why? Not just why at the existence of a super only for one of these characters, why at the existence of 3 of these characters? Why do I have to know the minute differences of characters that I'm not going to play anyway, because at this point I'm better off just using regular random select? Or just make a metric fuck ton of custom characters who have all these 3 styles so you can have 1 million different nebulous random select buttons? Isn't that what the true logical extreme of random select is anyway? 1 trillion random select buttons of varying randomness? Okay, so maybe I lost the plot a little at the end there. In fact, I feel like I actually know less about random select after this than I did before I went into it. Like, what ground did I even cover in this video? I guess the fact that a lot of random select buttons aren't actually random in older games. I read some forums about how Super Turbo HD Remix's random select cycles between characters rather than shuffling between them, but I couldn't actually verify that because I don't own HD Remix myself, and well, if you don't own that game now, you're never getting it. Capcom, please fucking archive that game. In other words, there's definitely some interesting takes on this that I forgot to mention in detail. So you can go down in the comments and talk about that one BioFreaks boss character that I didn't mention because I didn't feel like recording footage for that game, or, you know, other stuff too. But in the meantime, I will be eating my epic potato cereal while scrolling through my delicately hand-picked Narusasu Yaoi collection. Hi, thanks for watching this video on Random Select. I'm really happy that you took the time to look at a video about Random Select and give it your time for some reason. Thank you to Jericho, Kaidiyin, MickXCat, Phenomenal, Penrost, and Typho for their support this month on Patreon. You can support me on Patreon too in the description to get shoutouts in these videos, and also monthly bonus features, one of which is the Street Fighter 6 Random Select ranked match video that I said I was doing earlier in the video. It's fucking hot in this hot ass fuck ass room I'm in, so I'm going to stop recording now so that I can turn on my fans again. Okay, bye!